Hey everyone, Steven here with Lucky Casts, and today we're going to talk about rendering HTML with Lucky. That may sound extremely simple, and it should, but lots of frameworks and languages really struggle with the developer ergonomics and experience around that concept. What we're doing with server rendered HTML is actually pretty amazing. We're taking content and data from one language, like Crystal or Ruby or PHP, and inserting it dynamically into another language, HTML, that can be consumed by a browser. To really emphasize what I think Lucky got right in such a huge way about rendering HTML, let's first take a look at how a couple of other languages and frameworks tackle the same problem, starting with embedded Crystal. A common theme you'll see in templating languages across all of the samples in this episode is the idea that in a view, you're writing both HTML tags and content in your language of choice, Crystal in this example. The templating language gives you some key characters or delimiters that tell you when to stop rendering plain HTML and to start to interpret the output from another language into the HTML content. In this case, I have a control structure that loops over a collection of books, and it renders the title, content, and some links for each book within those common table tags like the TD and TR. Going into a slang template, which is like Crystal's version and take on Slim, I've got the same thing where I have the same basic structure, just less characters because I don't have the open and closing HTML tags. But I have a table, the table header, and then this dash, which delimits that I'm going to have slang interpret Crystal code instead of HTML to loop over each of my books and render out the title and content of each book. In a Laravel Blade template, we have the exact same concept, where I'm rendering a bunch of plain HTML tags. Then I'm handing over some PHP to Blade so that I can render a collection of books and render out the title and content in this mustache style rendering with the curly braces. In a Rails ERB template, again, same concept. I tell ERB to render out a collection of books, and for each one of those books, I want to insert the title and the content. So what's so special and unique about how Lucky handles views? Well, I'll start by saying that Lucky does support ECR. So if you've really loved what you've seen so far, it's very familiar and feels comfortable, no problem. You can keep using that, and there's more information on the website around how to set that up. However, the Lucky team took this problem of interweaving HTML and Crystal and flipped it on its head. Instead of inserting Crystal into HTML, what if we simply rendered all of our HTML using Crystal methods? And that's exactly what we can see here. Instead of writing an HTML tag for the table body, I use the tBody method defined by Lucky to render out the HTML for me. Because the entire view is rendered using Crystal, looping over my collection also doesn't take anything special. I simply write my each block and use the TD methods to output the title and the content of each book. There are a couple of really powerful advantages that we get with this approach. For one, I can extract methods in a view, something that's really tricky to do with templating languages like ERB and ECR. I can use partials, but then my code has to live somewhere else. I can use components, but then I just have to have specific component namespaces for every object I'm rendering. In Lucky, because views are just Crystal classes, I can leverage any Crystal functionality to clean up and organize my code that I'd like. For example, let's say I want to extract this table body into its own private method. I can highlight it and use the VS Code Lucky extension to extract a method called renderBody. I'll save to format, and now I've extracted out this functionality that might be overly complex that I don't want to think about when I'm looking through the view into a private method, but that's still readily accessible and available to me if I need to access it without opening up a partial or component file. Another advantage I get with this approach is the ability to use linters or formatters. We can demonstrate this in an ECR file by adding a bunch of spacing here before 2, and then saving. I have auto formatting turned on using the Crystal formatter, and generally it should fix this. Crystal doesn't want a bunch of empty space here. However, because this is an ECR file and there's HTML that Crystal doesn't know how to interpret, it can't help me. If I come back to my Lucky view, which is just plain Crystal, and add the same spacing here, and then save, Crystal fixes it for me, keeping my styling consistent across all of my codebase, including my views. There are some disadvantages though. If I'm using ECR, I can copy and paste some Bootstrap or Tailwind or Stack Overflow HTML, and it'll render just fine. All I need to do is replace a few key sections with embedded crystal, and I'm good to go. In Lucky views, that's a little bit more tricky because remember, this is not HTML, they're crystal methods. That said, the Lucky team has made that a bit easier to work around by building an HTML to crystal converter. You can find that at luckyframework.org/HTML, so it's a bit less of an issue. You just copy your HTML into that form and it'll spit out valid crystal that you can then paste into your view. Today, I've shown what I believe to be one of the most powerful and compelling reasons to choose Lucky over another framework. I'm eager to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and until next time, this has been Steven with LuckyCasts. Have a great day.